have our good friend Dimitri Antonakis from CIBC. And look at that. It says mortgage advice that comes to you. You're literally coming to us. So look at that. You guys are living up to your slogan. Good job.
I like it.
All righty, I'm going to turn over to you here. So Dimitri, what's going on? I know we have a few things to talk about, but give us a little bit of an update with, I guess the first thing you want to talk about was September 30th and the Truth and Reconciliation Day and possession date. So what's going on there? And fill us in on what's going on your end.
Sure, Michael. Yeah, thanks very much for reaching out to me last week about that. And so I'm hearing from a lot of realtors that there seems to be quite a few closing dates on that date right now already scheduled. The end of the month is usually a huge closing date, right, for most real estate transactions. So, fortunately for us, we got a new holiday right on that date with relatively short notice. So one thing to note is you'll find that the lenders are generally speaking closed, especially the national ones. On that date. So we're not going to be closing any deals that day. So it's important to change the closing date to either the day before or the following Monday. And just kind of a heads up on that as a general rule of thumb, we do find in Winnipeg that kind of realtors in general will fill out offers to purchase with weekend closing dates as well, like pretty often. And as far as I know, lawyers don't actually attain keys and provide those to clients on a weekend usually. So just kind of a heads up, it might be wise as a general practice to pick a weekday, like a business day, as a closing date on an offer, even if a client won't move in that day. Best to sort of take possession of a home on a business day. That way there's no need to change closing dates or kind of go through the rigmarole of that process. Now at CIBC, we'll accept a lawyer simply sending us an email to change the closing date, whether it's on the 30th and we're moving it or it's on a different weekend date. But it is kind of a typical thing that comes up a lot. So just throwing that out there might be kind of a good standard practice to use a traditional business day for closing dates for the most part.
Yeah. And I mean, I think from, correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, I've talked to a couple of lawyers and a couple of other lenders, and some people, they figure it out with different trust conditions or they ask for the, instructions earlier, but really this is about avoiding some problems because let's face it, not everybody, not you're on the ball, but not everybody's on the ball. And so we've seen these things kind of come up at the last minute and you want to avoid as many problems as possible. So again, so if you have any closings come up on September 30th, check with the lawyers, check with the lenders, just to make sure that September 30th isn't going to sneak up and cause any problems. They may be able to close as per normal, but maybe somebody's asleep at the wheel. Wouldn't be the first time. So let's not be asleep at the wheel and get on it just to make sure if you have any September 30th closings, talk to your lawyers, talk to the lenders, make sure things are looking good because you don't want those last minute problems. Is that fair, Dimitri?
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely. I've heard of some lenders that want an actual possession date change document signed by both sides of a deal. So that can be a real pain if you get an email from a lender on September 27th or something, and it's a rural purchase, and it's just hard to get everyone to sign a form, or it's not done through DocuSign or something. So yeah, just one of those things. It shouldn't affect too many deals, but I have heard from realtors so far that have found it to be a bit of a nuisance. So
yeah, gotcha. Okay, well, what else is going on your end? What's happening? I guess the election just finished, or chatting a bit about that. What's happening with rates? What's going on in the mortgage world right now?
Right on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess, we've got Trudeau again. So I guess congrats to the Liberal Party for keeping power in the House there. And one thing to note is if you guys were, if you followed the election at all, as Michael said, over the last 36 days or so, the trick is that each party, at least the three major ones, have had like a housing strategy that's been related to some different plans. So assuming that, with the Liberals winning, assuming their housing strategy works, they have actually a pretty comprehensive plan to try to, kind of affect change in the housing market. So just to make this relatively brief, I would highly suggest Googling and looking this up, Liberal Housing Plan, as part of their sort of platform. It's actually, it's multi-pronged. There's all kinds of impacts, like setting up a first-time home buyer savings account, would act kind of like a TFSA, but specifically for this purpose. And then there's also some other plans related to sort of, how the federal government can get involved directly for, what are they called? It's like a private sale where the client's already renting from the landlord. What do you call that? I can't think of the term. But whatever.
Rent to own.
Rent to own. Thank you for exactly. So rent to owns are extremely uncommon actually right now. Like you almost never see them, but apparently the Liberal government believes that a rent to own strategy could be an interesting approach to help first time buyers get into house, which is a very different strategy I've never heard before. So I highly recommend looking into this. And then as a side note, what I should mention is that there's been a lot of talk about rates going up and how the inflation rate and is sort of impacting the long term rate environment. Our rates just went down today, to be honest, on the fixed side, and actually notably. So I would actually throw it out there and say that we are actually not seeing that in practice right now. In fact, it's quite the opposite, whereas there's been a relative, compared to the extreme highs of the spring and summer that we saw, been a relative soft landing in the fall for overall volume nationally. And so we're actually seeing lenders in general being very competitive to sort of keep the momentum going in the housing market, at least as far as they can affect it with rates. So there's very good news as far as rates are concerned for clients right now going into the fall. And to be honest, last year the exact same thing happened where the rate environment was very aggressive in the fall right through to Christmas. So I think we're expecting that to continue. If anything, rates might continue to fall on the side. Now, one last thing I wanted to mention though is one thing that's continuously being ignored though is sort of the value of variable rates right now. I know some people are all about it, but generally speaking, variable rates are ridiculous right now. You're paying 1.25 basically for most variable rates today. These rates are crazy. Like if even if you compare that to like a 1.99 fixed rate, if someone takes the same payment on a fixed or in a variable rate, they'll basically have 3 to 5 year shorter amortization on their mortgage at the same cost. So these are large differences. So I've always been an advocate for variable, and honestly, I cannot be more aggressive on this. If fixed rates are dropping, that means there's essentially no risk of variable going up, right? So very, very secure time to consider variable terms. But anyway, that's just kind of part of a larger conversation with clients as well.
Yep. No, absolutely. I'm always a big fan of variables as well. So what is you talked about rates dropping. What are the actual rates then right now for like a 5-year fixed versus and a variable?
Yeah, like for example, right now, like our 5 year is now 1.99. So we have a 5-year fix that applies to a new purchase and also to someone transferring in a mortgage from a competitor. That's our best fixed rate currently. And then on the variable side, yeah, we're at 1.23% on a 5-year variable
So
rate.
is that prime minus, what is that, prime minus one?
Minus 1.22, I believe, if my math is correct.
1.22. Okay, look at that. Ooh, I like that. One of my properties is up for renewal, so Mike, you're going to be taking that one.
Hey, we'll do what we can. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Just kind of maybe a side note to that for any, I know you guys are generally working with buyers and sellers, right? But for any refinance business, CIBC does cover the cost of any sort of administrative cost of transferring and provides a cash bonus on top of a very good rate. So there's always a good value to considering us for that. Perfect. Yeah, right on. Yeah, but rates are fantastic, guys. If anything, they're going to probably keep going down. So keep your nose to the ground and should be a busy fall for everybody.
Yeah, cool. We talked a little bit briefly before the meeting about, just some of any potential issues that you're seeing or some problems that are, recurring problems or things that are rearing their ugly heads at the last minute. Can you tell us a little bit what's going on in that end and how realtors can avoid some pitfalls that we're seeing?
Sure. Yeah. Like as the market's obviously continually very competitive and will likely stay this way for some time into the future, there are always some challenges that come up that affect someone's financing process and can cause stress. I guess the first thing I'll mention is we were talking, Michael, prior to the call, just regarding to a deal falling apart last minute, like upon closing or something like that. So I've been fortunate. I haven't seen a lot of this, but I am hearing that there's an increasing trend for people like straight up walking away from the odd deposit upon closing of a purchase and that sort of thing, which is kind of concerning. Hopefully that's not going to be an ongoing trend. But we were talking about that one of the best things to do possibly would be to increase deposits to sort of limit sort of collateral damage of that happening. And so that's one thing to note is that, and an increased deposit really helps too if there's any conditions on an offer to purchase, as we know. So if you're not going to go fully unconditional on a purchase, but you can increase the deposit, it should help close the initial purchase, at least the client getting the house, and then it's harder to walk away from any deposits after conditions are waived. So something to consider there. Now, as a side note, what I'm seeing though is more so during the financing window, where the odd thing comes up that's a little different than what the approval would have indicated, and then clients being relatively eager to walk away from a deal. So, for example, if clients, as this is an obvious thing, I'm sure for most experienced agents, but if a lender provides a pre-approval maximum number, whatever the max is. If the pre-approval is done fairly accurately, that's going to be their soup to nuts max, like they really can't go a lot above that based on the details of their financial position. So as you get closer to that max number, there is a slightly higher chance that the actual requirements from the client could be slightly different. I'll give you an example. I had a condo purchase recently where a client bought a fairly, a modest, like a $200,000 type condo. And he bought literally to the dollar on his pre-approval, but unfortunately it was an older building and the condo fee was quite high, considering the sort of size and location of the condo. And so that condo fee affected his TDSR to the point that he had to increase his down payment by $4,000 in order to make the deal work. Now, this client, frankly, had the money. They could have closed, but they felt some sort of weird, I don't know, moral obligation to walk away from this transaction because I believe they felt kind of already bought at the top end. So there was a bit of extra stress involved in that transaction, from what I can tell. And they walked away from the purchase due to something that I would deem to be fairly minor in the context. But condos are a good example where condo fees vary so much, right? Like a brand new condo might have a $150 condo fee, but an older one might have a condo fee $800. So banks have no real ability to use all kinds of different condo fees, or even we have to use standard numbers for things like property taxes, heating costs, and things in a pre-approval. So those things can change. So just sort of keep that in mind as you go higher up that number, just to sort of maybe even double check with the client to make sure they're comfortable to do that. I can certainly, let's say if it's someone like me handling the deal, I can certainly speak with them, on the offer date or whatever is needed, sort of either reassure them that things work or say, oh, this now changes the numbers a bit. How do you feel? So that it could avoid kind of some of the stresses that come through after that deal is live.
Right.
So easier to sort of deal with that stuff before all the pressure of closing the purchase shows up. But it's rare.
Yeah.
It does come up.
Yeah, cool. Perfect. While I'm just going to ask Dimitri one more question or a couple quick little things, but in the meantime there, if anybody wants to take the opportunity to ask Dimitri a question, if you got any questions on mortgages, financing, etc., feel free to throw it in the chat or the Q&A and I'll read it out to him. So while anybody's typing, Dimitri, also you have, I want to thank you for being, partnering with us, not only coming on, giving us some information in our sales meetings, but partnering with us and sponsoring our fall kickoff coming up on October 6th with CIBC and some more partnerships that you have coming on board. So why don't you quickly tell us, thank you, and tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do with us here at Prime.
No, thank you, Michael. Thank you. No, it's the least we can do. And the truth is, I think over the years that I've known you and I've known a lot of the agents that work at Prime, there's clearly a shared value proposition, I think, amongst how we all do business and how there's a professionalism that we focus on. So yeah, excited to sponsor the fall kickoff event. So CIBC as a whole is sponsoring that. So many of our mortgage advisors will be joining me at the event. Hopefully it's in person, I really hope so. We're very close to that, but as you know, Alberta's going through it right now. So I guess we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. But yeah, looking forward to that. The speaker is going to be great. And you're going to hear also from our regional vice president, Frank Satana, at that meeting. He'll be talking briefly about sort of how we do business and sort of some value of working with us. So I'm looking forward to that. And then as a side note, yes, actually before COVID, for about a year, I was partnering somewhat with Keniston offices. It was getting established. So thank you for offering me a chance to do that, Michael. And for those of you that have worked with me there prior, and now after, not that we're through it, but after the kind of the tail end of it now, hopefully, I'm starting to come again, and I'm hoping to start this Thursday, actually. So I'm hoping to come once a week to Prime Keniston for at least the morning or possibly the whole day. So, please use me as a resource, folks that work out of that office or any Northie agents. Use it when they're in the South. I'm there to help, right? So it's not just a matter of me working with your clients, but there could be an opportunity to get some, running an idea past me or some feedback. My hope is to work together with all of you in some capacity. So please use me as able. So thanks so much. Looking forward to coming back.
Beauty, thank you. And a question did come in here. It says, what's the current rate for revenue properties like a duplex?
That's a good question. It depends, actually. So if the duplex is being purchased as a full-on rental, where let's say both units are going to be used as rental, it depends if you go fixed or variable, but we're looking at about a 0.15% premium on all of our floor promotions. So for example, most people that buy rentals, I generally recommend variable interest rates as well, just purely for the lower cost and the possibility of them having to sell the unit earlier than expected. If you have a bad tenant or whatever the case may be, especially if it's your first rental. So for example, what are we looking at? I got to use a calculatrice here. It's brutal, but 1.38%, for example, on a variable, and you're looking just over 2%, about 2.15 or so on a fixed. for a revenue property. Again, this is if it's a conventional, fully rental occupied. What we do see a lot with duplexes though is where it's owner occupied for one unit. Standard rates apply for those deals. So there is no rate premium or anything like that. So like 199, 123, in terms of the fixed variable for that. And oftentimes we do sort of structure the duplex sort of as a primary home, if that makes sense for that reason. So I won't go into details, but it's primary as far as we're concerned. But anyway, so
Gotcha.
just throwing that
Cool.
out. Hopefully there's value there.
Awesome. Thanks so much. If there's any other questions, I'll just wait a couple seconds here. Not seeing any come through. So Dimitri, I want to again thank you for joining us, taking time out of your day to educate us a little bit what's going on. And again, always pleasure seeing you, and we'll see you more and more and more, right? So thank you again, and thank you for the upcoming sponsorship. Love it.
My pleasure, folks. See you soon. Take care.
Oh, wait. A question may have come in.
Oh,
Can I get a phone number? I'm assuming that's Dimitri's phone number. Sure, I'll type it into the chat. Dimitri, what's your phone number?
It's like 1-900. No, I'm just kidding. It's 204-612-9511. I advertise this readily, guys. Use it as needed. I'm here for like life coaching, good times and mortgages.
All right. Okay, sounds good. Thank you again, Dimitri. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All righty. Moving back to our meeting. Wow, sometimes it's really hard to find the things I want to find on here when I have so many windows open. Okay, I'll do it this way. There we go. Sorry about that. All right. So thanks to Dimitri. Again, some upcoming events. Mark your calendars if not already done. Next Tuesday from 12 to 1 is part 3 of the National Sales Conference at Royal LePage, featuring Bruce Kirkby, acclaimed explorer, travel writer, and TV host. So check that out. It's for 1 hour next Tuesday from 12 to 1. That is Eastern time, so 12 to 1 our time, Central time. And of course, as mentioned there, again, thank you so much to Dimitri and the CIBC people for sponsoring the event. Our fall kickoff is on October 6th. It's coming right up, and everything is still a go at the moment. As far as Dimitri mentioned being in person, everything is still a go right now. Doors opening 8:30, breakfast at 9, kickoff. The meeting starts at 9:30. Register on the hub, primetimehub.ca. This ad, what you're seeing right now, is on the hub. Click that, or it says there's a button underneath it that says register here. Please register, and as we get ready for that. On the registration, there's actually going to be also a question if you want to golf after. So St. Boniface is gracious enough to block off some tee times. I think it's like $56 for the round. And if you want to golf afterwards, hey, let's have some fun. Let's have a round of golf afterwards. So just make sure you register in advance for golf as well as the kickoff on the hub there. Much appreciated. Michael Vickers, he's been doing a bit of some interviews with some agents. A lot of these speakers like to do some preliminary research and talk to the agents, get a feel for the market, what they're going through. And so he's put out a couple of feeler calls with some of our agents, and one of them, I don't have the quote right in front of me, but basically said, hey, he was interviewing me, but then we started talking, and you know what, in 30 minutes, he gave me 3 ideas that might transform my business and really help. So thank you so much. This dude's legit. It's going to be an awesome time there with Michael Vickers on the October 6th. So please, again, register. And again, thank you to CIBC for being the title sponsor. With business planning workshop on October the 19th, 2021 from 9:30 to 12. Registration is also on the hub. Quick reminder, Masters Academy, this is a paid conference, but you can attend, but I really think it's worth every single penny. I believe the VIP access is $199, so it's very cheap for 2.5 days of amazing content from November 2 to 4. So just keep that one in mind. RichardRobbins.com, you can check out the event there. Just an amazing real estate conference. Highly recommend it. All right, getting into some what would you do stuff, some fun ones lately. So what would you do if a buyer, you have an offer is accepted, and the buyers call and say, on second thought, you know what, I really don't want this house anymore, right? So it's just completely change your mind. So what would you do if you were the buyer's agent? Right? And I know this is not the most wonderful format for talking, but if anybody wants to throw in stuff in the chat box, go for it. But what would you do if you're the buyer's agent? So what are the responsibilities as a buyer's agent if your buyer say, you know, I don't want this house anymore, right? Now, of course, as a buyer's agent, you want to keep a deal together because you want to get paid, but at the same time, you want to do good by your client and represent them well, and they're not wanting the house anymore. So how do you actually try to get them out of this? How do you try to get them out of the deal? What do you really do in this situation? So more often than not, you're probably going to have a conversation where you say, you know what, we have it accepted. This is legally binding. If you don't do this, we could potentially, you know, be sued for damages, right? You could lose your deposit, et cetera. So you really do want to caution them about this, and, you know, put a little bit of the fear of God into them, you know, and remind them of that wonderful clause in the offer that states exactly what happens if they do default, right? And so depending on the degree of the acceptance, how airtight this thing is, you know, you could potentially, you know, if this is a text message or verbal acceptance, you have a bit more negotiating leverage that you really do or don't have an acceptance. But the biggest thing is you want to really remind them of what their obligations are legally, that their deposit's in jeopardy, and they could be, and they could get sued for more, right? That's always kind of number one. What happens if you're the listing agent on these ones? Oh, I think somebody came in the chat here, so I'll just take a look there. Speak to lawyer. So Michael says, yes, yeah, you can always speak to a lawyer, call the broker, of course, those kind of things. But that's in general where I'd start with as being the buyer's agent. If you're the listing agent, again, this is where the bark is going to be more so than the bite, is essentially what I just mentioned. Oh yeah, well, we're going to keep your deposit then, and, you know, potentially sue you for more. And you really want to get on the phone and start calling for a backup offer, right? Because you definitely want to minimize that damage. And I'm going to get to a common trend here in a second, so you can probably figure it out. And what if you have a big deposit versus a no deposit handed in yet? And this is kind of where I was alluding to, is we've seen a few deals come across where this has happened. The buyer has said, hey, we don't want the house anymore, right? The listing agent said, well, yeah, well, we're going to sue the pants off you. We're going to keep your deposit. And the guy said, well, you know what? There's no deposit handed in yet. So good luck. Come get it, essentially. Right now, that is legally speaking, you know, of course, you know, if it's a truly accepted offer, the buyer's agent, or sorry, the buyer is, you know, his deposit's in jeopardy. But if you haven't given it yet, now you have to go chase it, right? And so now your seller has to actually go and sue the buyer, like actually sue them, right? And if the deposit's over 15,000, it has to go above small claims court, or it was supposed to be. But we see this, it's happened a couple of times where there's no deposit. It's an emailed offer, deposit to come within 24 hours, and then these people are flaking out. So the moral of the story here with all of this is you have to know, of course, what's legal and what the legal obligations are with both buyer and seller. But there's this other part of reality that says, man, the seller is unlikely, you know, to go sue somebody. It's unlikely that it happens. It does happen on occasion, but it very rarely is a seller going to go hunt the person down for the deposit and sue them for the deposit and sue them for any damages. Now, like I said, the listing agent's job, that is your job to definitely bark that bark and threaten to literally sue the pants off these people. And the client is coming for blood, right? And as my dad always taught me, he says it's not always about the bite, it's about how loud the dog can bark. Ooh, butchered that one. It's about how loud the dog can bark. So you definitely need to come from a strong position and hopefully scare them into actually following through on this deal. So all of that, a bit of a story and a roundabout way to say this is what I'm really concerned about, is when you have these multiple offer situations and you aren't having deposits. Okay, it's happening and it's like, oh yeah, they're gonna, you know, it's a good agent, they're gonna hand in deposit. Well, the agent might be good, but the client might not be good. So as Dimitri even mentioned, make sure we're having sizable deposits, right? Because you know what, for $1,000, no one's going to go sue somebody for $1,000. For $25,000 deposit, maybe I'll make a call to a lawyer, right? So let's make sure let's be extra, just a little bit cautious when there's no deposit handed in. And as a buyer's agent, let's make sure, you know, if we can get those checks, prepare your buyers, get the bank drafts, get the checks in, because it's going to help them win, because listing agents are becoming more and more wary and cautious of these deposits to be provided within 24, 48 hours, right? At the same time, you know, that does offer you, if you don't hand in a deposit check, you kind of have a bit of not a way out, but some leverage there because you're not actually given the deposit yet. That makes sense, right? Two things can be true at once, and it really depends on what side you're representing. But anyways, that's what we're seeing a bit more right now, is this be cautious with this no deposit stuff. A couple disclosure things here. So you're the listing agent, and the vendors request that you do not disclose the following. This isn't on the same one, just random examples. So they disclose, hey, please, agent, don't tell anyone that there was, I grew some dope in here, right? I had a little shop in the basement, but don't tell anybody, right? It was never busted by the police. It was no permanent, nothing on record, nothing on Google, but maybe the neighbors know about it, etc. Right? So that's one scenario, right? All of these simply have a similar answer. Number one, and number two is, hey, please don't tell anybody. I didn't pull permits for the basement. Okay, I renovated the whole basement, did plumbing, electrical, did everything. Don't tell anybody but the permits. And number three, hey, by the way, there was definitely a murder in this house, 20 years ago or whatever it was. I got a great deal on it back then, but no one knows this. But yeah, there was just brutal murder in the house. Please don't tell anybody. What do you do? All three answers are relatively the same. Anybody have an idea? Throw in the chat. Can be brave enough. I'll wait 4 more seconds. One says you must disclose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do not take the listing. Okay, interesting, cool. So those are a couple different options, but this is, remember, your fiduciary legal obligation as a listing agent. So your legal obligation to your client is that you must follow their lawful instructions. So the question is it lawful? Are any of those things lawful, right? If you remember, oops, we got, I grew dope, right? I didn't pull permits, and there's murder. Now, not pulling permits, technically not legal, right? You're supposed to pull permits. Growing marijuana without a license, technically illegal. Murdering people, definitely illegal. That's not the issue. Those actions are potentially illegal, but we're talking about disclosure here. And you are not legally obligated to disclose those things, okay? In all three circumstances, disclosure is not mandatory. Now, if it's an LJR, yes, it is. If it's outside of that, it is not, okay? And why is you not allowed, you don't have to disclose stigmatized housing, which is the murder part. Also, marijuana, what you're only obligated to disclose, of course, is the material latent defects, which are hidden defects that lead to a health or safety concern. Okay, so not having permits pulled in the basement, not a structural concern, not a safety concern. Nobody's going to die because of lack of permits. And just because somebody was murdered in the house, that's stigmatized housing, which does not have to be disclosed legally speaking, according to law. And as well, the first one with growing marijuana, again, not a health or safety concern, as long as there's no mold and things like that in the house. If they had a few plants downstairs, the same as geraniums. None of those things that you are obligated as a realtor to disclose, and neither is the client. So if they are actually instructing you, do not disclose that, you have to follow those lawful instructions, but it's not against the law to withhold that disclosure. Interesting, isn't it? Now, one person said, don't take the listing. That is up to you. That is a business decision. If you go, you know what, I don't like this. My clients want me to do this. I don't feel good about it. That's on you. And then we can turn away the listing if you want. You can go work with someone else. That's fine. But what you can't do is go disclose that stuff on your own to make yourself help to sleep better at night. If you go, oh, man, I can't. I'd have to tell people about the murder, and you start disclosing that, you're breaking your fiduciary duty, and you can be liable and you can be sued because you're not actually representing your client properly, right? You've broken your fiduciary duty by your conscience in that case. So if your conscience is really bothering you, and you really want to tell people about the murder, don't take the listing, right? So marijuana and permits, of course, do appear in the PDS, as we know. So if there's a PDS requested, your seller will have to disclose that on the PDS, right? But it does not have to be offered, right? If there's no PDS, you say seller's not providing PDS and they don't provide a PDS, again, you are not obligated to disclose any of those three things unless it's LJR. Okay, keep that in mind. If it's LJR, limited joint representation, you have to disclose. Again, the difference is material facts. You owe anybody, a client of Royal LePage Prime, a material fact, which is anything that a seller would use, a client would use to make a decision on. And so clients certainly would make a decision based on marijuana, permits, and murder. right? So you owe that in LJR. Outside of LJR, no disclosure required. Oops. Alrighty. Any questions on that? Comments? Okay. A little bit of legal stuff there. All right, it happens. In one case, we actually did. The person was so dishonest. I think everyone agreed to not take the listing and have it moved somewhere else because the seller was so dishonest in all their dealings. We didn't want to deal with them anymore, so we shipped it off. Right. All righty. I'm going to do my best. I have these old picture here. I'm going to tell you guys a story. Okay, and I entitled it on the on the agenda there, the one thing that everybody needs to succeed. And this is regardless of in sales or in anything in life, but in general, I would say definitely specifically with sales, this is going to be something that everybody needs. So I'm going to tell you the story first though. So, and again, I took these took these pictures from a book. I just had to Google some things, so it's not going to be 100% accurate, but back in the day, this is right after World War I, in the early 20s, there was an owner of a huge lumber supply company. His name was Mr. Alan Ricks. That's the guy in the middle there. He was affectionately known as the name Cappy. So when I talked about Cappy, I'm talking about that guy. He was the owner of the company, and he had two right-hand men. It was Mr. Skinner and Mr. Peasley, right? Those are his confidants, his inner circle. And this company was massive. They had international operations shipping lumber all over the world. Okay. And so they had problems right now. They were discussing operations in Asia, in Shanghai specifically. Their leader there had turned into a degenerate. He was gambling, he was drinking, he was actually in debt, and he was not handling things the way you need to handle. So they were discussing his replacement. And they're talking about who should succeed, in Shanghai and run their whole Asian outfit out there. So as they were discussing this, they were walking outside their offices, and a man named William Peck approached him. He manages to catch Cappy outside as he's smoking his pipe, and he asks for an interview. Right. So this is William Peck. William Peck here is a World War I veteran. He's missing an arm. He walks with a limp and has a noticeable cough from his times in the digging tunnels in France. But his confidence catches Cappy by surprise, and where Cappy even says, "I can't believe it. You talk like you already have the job." He says, "But you know what? I'm not hiring, so go see my right-hand man there. Go see Mr. Skinner, and he'll be able to hook you up with the job." And he says, "Sir," and Mr. Peck says, "Sir, I already met with Mr. Skinner, and he has turned me down. He didn't see me fit for duty. He didn't see me fit that I could help you." He says, "Okay, well then go see Mr. Peasley, my other one. He handles a different branch. I'm sure he might be able to find you a job." And he says, "I've also met with Mr. Peasley, and he has also turned me down." And the quote says, "I want you to, I came here to go over their heads so you can give me a job. I don't care a hoot what it is, provided I can do it. If I can do it, I'll do it better than it was ever done before. And if I can't do it, then I'll quit to save you the embarrassment of firing me." Okay? So this guy is, so Cappy decides he likes the cut of this guy's jib. He likes his confidence, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to give you a job. You can go work at this lumber mill over there, and you can work as a salesperson selling some wood." Right. And Skinner is just completely irate at this. Mr. Skinner says, "I can't, I don't want this guy in there. There's no room in business for empathy. You have this soft heart there, Cappy. This guy can't work. He's got one leg. He's a limp. He's coughing. He's going to be no good. Why do I have to handle this guy?" So Cappy says, "Fine, then we'll give him, let him sell the crap." Right. Let him sell the remains. Let him sell this, the odds and ends. Let him sell this wood that no one wants. It's called skunk fir. Nobody wants it. So let him sell that. Right. And 2 months go by, and this Peck guy just is selling up all of this crappy wood. So the wood that no one can sell, Peck is end up actually selling this thing. And 2 months go by, and he, the owner there, Cappy, checks up on him. Right. He checks up on him, and he says, "This guy's doing really well. I want to give him the job in Shanghai." right? I want to give him the Shanghai job. I'm really impressed with this guy. I want to let him be the head of our whole Asian outfit out there. And of course, Skinner, he already didn't want to hire the guy to, be in the mailroom. Doesn't want to hire this dude at all. He says, no, we're not hiring him. This is pathetic. No way. And so what Cappy says is, I'll make you a bet. I'll do a test. If he can return a blue vase, I want to have a blue vase. If he can get me a blue vase today by 8 o'clock, I'll make you the deal. He'll get the job instead of this other guy that Skinner wants. It's going to be Mr. Peck who's going to get the job in Shanghai if he can get me a vase by 8 p.m. tonight. So what happens is he goes to, so they say deal on, they handshake and they say, here's a deal. So the owner of the company, Cappy, he finds Mr. Peck and he tells him about this blue vase. He tells him exactly what he needs to do. He says, here it is. It's on Sutter Street near Stockton and Powell. Go down there. There's a blue vase. It should be in the window. It's going to be beautiful, but it's not that cheap. So please spend your own money. I'll reimburse you. Go get me the vase. My train leaves at 8 o'clock tonight. It's imperative that I have it back. This is going to be an anniversary present to one of my dear friends. Right now, keep in mind, this guy is Cappy here is owner of this lumber yard, ships all over the world. This is like going up to Rockefeller. This is going up to a billionaire. They probably didn't have billions at that time, but this is talking to a big deal. It's like Elon Musk asking you to go do something, like you're going to go do it for a job, right? So anyways, what happens is Peck goes down and try to find this blue vase. There's nothing there, right? It's a sports store. There is no art store. There is nothing anywhere resembling a blue vase anywhere near the street that he told him to go to, right? So he started to go from the book. It says he proceeded to walk to the block in Sutter Street between Stockton and Powell. And although he walked patiently up one side of the street and down the other, not a single vase of any description could be found. I think the old boy has erred in the coordinates of the target, Bill Peck concluded. I'm going to phone his house and repeat it to them. So anyways, Peck doesn't see anything. There's nothing there. So he calls Cappy's house, right, and says, hey, I need to talk to this guy. Peck isn't there. He's already off doing something. Or sorry, Cappy's not there. He's off doing something. So he gets the Swedish maid. And the maid says, I don't know anything about anything here. And Mr. Peck isn't it. So, or Mr. Cappy's not in. So Mr. Peck, what he ends up doing is he starts making a grid pattern down these streets. And he starts walking and walking, thinking that he must have had the wrong coordinates. So he starts a grid pattern, scouted 2 blocks above Powell and 2 blocks below Stockton, and still the blue vase was invisible. Finally, he found it 4 blocks away. And the store was called B. Cohen's Art Store or Art Shop. The door was locked, however. The door was locked and he started trying to make a bit of a ruckus, try to kick it in a little bit, try to get in there, but no dice. There was a guard walking by. He didn't want to make too much of a ruckus to get in trouble, so he couldn't get in. So he decides to give the guy a call. So he's got to go check out a phone book, right? And he starts looking for him, but there's no Cohen. There's no B. Cohen in the phone book. Keep in mind, 1920s. This is before Google Maps. This is before cell phones. So he goes, he's got to go to some hotel, find a phone book in some place, and look up this guy's name, B. Cohen. And there's no Cohen anywhere listed in the phone book. So what the guy does is he says, you know what? Back then all the phone books are very local. So he says, you know what? He says, maybe the owner commutes. Maybe he doesn't live in this neighborhood. Maybe he doesn't live in the city. Maybe he commutes, right? So he starts going and he starts getting phone books from every other place in the nearby communities that maybe this guy travels in and commutes into town. So he goes into gets phone books and directories from 3 surrounding towns. Still nothing. So he goes back to the store and he finds out there was actually a misspelling. He says, you know what? Because names back then in the immigration day, they changed names and spelling a lot, right? And so even though it was Cohen on the story, he says, maybe he's changed his spelling. And so he goes back and does the exact same directory and looks for Cohen's instead of Cohen instead of an E. So what he does is he goes back and he starts calling again. He has to even go make some more change, use his own money to make and call. And finally, he actually gets a hold of somebody who is the store owner. Now, unfortunately, the store owner is they reached the store owner's employee and he said he's out dining. So he's actually, the store owner there, Mr. Cohen, is out at a dinner party, as I imagine that what it looks like. But he tries to get a hold of him. He's dining at a place called Simon's. So the guy calls Simon's restaurant, trying to get a hold of Mr. Cohen. right? Mr. Cohn, he tries 6 times, and finally somebody answers, and he says, we cannot be bothered. He's having a dinner party, so call back again. He says, no, you don't understand. He makes up a lie, and he says, Mr. Cohn's art store is on fire, right? Just to get him to get to the phone. So the owner finally comes down to the phone, and Mr. Peck has to apologize for the line, but it was so important that he had to get a hold of him, so he made up a story. So what happens is Mr. Cohn says, well, you know what, I'm at this dinner party, go call one of my employees. My employee will come down there and open up the shop. So he gives the number to the employee. He calls the employee's house, and who does he get? The employee's mom. The employee's mom answers the phone and says, I'm sorry, my son is out golfing. Sorry, I know the pictures are not really coinciding there, but he says, okay, he's golfing at what club? She wasn't quite sure. So he got the phone back on the phone and called a whole bunch of different golf clubs, but unfortunately, nobody has heard of this guy, of this employee. So then what Peck decides to do is he goes back and he says, screw it, I'm going to break into the sucker, right? But unfortunately, there's a policeman standing right by the art store somehow. So he cannot even go break in, and he decides to go back to the payphone, call the employee's mom again, and he gets a hold of the mom, and it turns out the guy just walked in the door and he's there. Unfortunately, he thought he was successful. He's like, yes, I finally did this. But guess what? It's 9:30. It's an hour and a half past the deadline, right? Imagine all this stuff, all this phoning and traveling. This takes a lot of time here. We're not talking cars and cell phones, right? So it's an hour past the deadline, but the employee comes down to open up the shop for this blue vase, right? And everything's looking great. He opens up the shop, but guess what? The vase is not cheap. The vase he cannot afford. The vase is $2,000. Peck doesn't have $2,000, so he calls people asking for a loan, but nobody's going to give him a loan. And the employee won't take his personal check. So what he does is he goes back to his hotel. Peck goes back to his hotel, goes into his bags, and he has some jewelry from his late wife. His wife he goes back to the employee and says, here, use these diamonds as security, use this jewelry as security for the vase, and let's make a trade. Successful, he gets the blue vase. And again, by now it is far too late. So what he does is he goes and hires somebody from a flying school in town to get him on a plane and fly to Santa Barbara, where the company owner would eventually catch the next train. So when he lands then, Mr. Peck, I'm cutting off a lot of detail here, but he comes into, so he flies to Santa Barbara. The train is already moving. He lands in a field next to the train. He lights a newspaper on fire and tries to flag down the train. The conductor sees the flame, freaks out, hits the brakes, and the train stops. And Peck boards the train, and he finds Cappy, and he brings him the blue vase, at 6:15 the next day, right? And I feel like this is what it was. He cried because once he found out, Cappy says this was all a test. We changed the sign on you intentionally, and we made it difficult. We told them not to go down there immediately. We set a policeman to guard the shop to keep you from breaking in through the window. And now we made you dig up $2,000 on a Sunday night in a town where you practically are unknown. And while you missed the train at 8 o'clock, you somehow overtake it at 2 o'clock in the morning and deliver the blue vase. Come in, have a rest, have a drink. I am much obliged to you. Now that story, and it's a book called The Go-Getter. And I really just paraphrase it, so you didn't have to read it. You're welcome. But I encourage you to do so. It's written in really cool 1920 English. It's very, use some vernacular. It's very interesting and very old school, which is fun. But what the important thing in here, as I mentioned in the agenda, this is one thing that it takes to be successful. And this is not a tactical thing. This is not a strategic thing. This is an attitude thing. So when things are stacked against you, when your circumstances are stacked against you, when you've got COVID stacked against you, you've got elections stacked against you, or whatever it is, your economy, the market, etc., is stacked against you, I want you to remember the blue vase and Bill Peck. When your clients aren't loyal to you, when your clients lie to you, when your clients can't make a decision, when there's obstacles and the clients don't want to do it, or the financing's a problem, or you can't get paperwork back in time, I want you to remember the blue vase and Bill Peck. When other agents come at you, when other agents talk stuff about you, when other agents sandbag, lie, cheat to get a deal, don't return your calls, I want you to remember the blue vase and Bill Peck. Because it is that attitude, that relentlessness, that persistence, that problem solving that is going to determine your success in any area of your life more than anything else will. Vince Lombardi, one of my heroes, said it best: the difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack in will. So that blue vase is a story that I share every couple of years around here. It's been shared with me numerous times. And it's something that I have to continue to remind myself of am I being a blue vase leader right now? Am I being a blue vase agent right now? Am I being a blue vase boss right now? Am I being a blue vase parent right now? Am I being a blue vase husband right now? Am I being a blue vase person right now? Because I think you would all agree, if you can remember Bill Peck, and if we all acted like him, how many times did we quit? How many times would I have called it quit? I mean, God, the guy changed the bloody name on the sign. I probably would have thought, okay, that's it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. But he kept going to figure it out. The last thing I'm going to comment on, there's no particular slide for it, is why did he do all that? Was it who he is? Of course it was. Is what he's been through? Of course it was. But he wanted something. He had a vision for it. He had a want for it. He needed that job. He wanted that promotion. And so he went for it. What do you want that bad? If you don't want success that bad, well, then you're not going to be a blue vase. You got to want it. You got to have that hunger. What do you want to be as a dad? What do you want to be as a husband? What do you want your family to look like? What do you want your finances to look like? Knowing what you want will help that blue vase mentality. And you have that blue vase mentality to go get it. And nothing can stop you. That is the one thing that will determine your success, not your strength, not your knowledge, not your skill, but your will. So let's keep that blue vase in our minds. I keep on saying blue vase, so you remember it. Blue vase, blue vase, blue vase. Keep it in your head as you go today, as you go throughout these weeks. Keep that image sharp in your mind, and let's be blue vase agents. Part of being a blue vase agent is getting educated. It's coming a great thing. So quick reminder, register for the fall kickoff on October 6th. Check it out on the hub, register there. And that is just my last quick announcement for the rest of the week. And somebody says, I think I'll go to IKEA, get a blue vase. I think so. Put it up right in your office, right? Keep it in your screensaver. Okay. So remember that one. Have a great week, everybody. Love you. And we'll talk again soon. Love you too, Linda. Thanks. Feel more motivated than a one-armed paper hanger. Good stuff. I like it. All right. Have a good week, guys.